This image is the patch that I wore on my spacesuit when I went to International Space Station. I designed it myself. And the words on top basically describes the 3 chapters of my life. I was born a long, long time ago in a country far, far away, in a city called Mashhad, Iran. When I was growing up, I looked at the night skies, and I could look at the night skies and see the stars. Back then, the pollution wasn't as bad, and I could look at the stars and imagine myself floating up and touching them. It was an amazing feeling, and it made me want to learn how to fly, learn about space, about science, and how everything is built. I also came across this wonderful book in my early years called The Little Prince, and I fell in love with it, mostly because it was about an alien from space, which I was longing to meet, but also because I could relate with the narrator, the pilot, who talked about his frustration with the adults and the fact that the adults just don't get it. And I have to admit, I've never grown since then, and I'm still a child at heart. So don't look at me like this, I'm still a child. And I am proud of it, and I hope I never grow up. So in the spirit of The Little Prince, I drew a picture of my flight to space. I drew this beautiful spaceship that would take me to my stars, and I showed it to everyone. I showed it to my parents, to friends, to family, to everyone, to my teachers, and I told them I'm going to go to space. And of course, you know, they looked at me, they smiled, they said, "Ah, nice, this is really good. How are you going to go up there?" I said, "This is my spaceship." And they looked at me, and I could tell that they were not taking me seriously. So I decided I'm going to prove them wrong. So I did. I did go to space, and I did go to space on a rocket ship that resembled what I drew, just to prove them I could predict the future. And that has been the story of my life. Everyone who knows me, they know not to challenge me. If you tell me I cannot do something, I'm going to prove you wrong. I grew up in a very modest, simple family. When I was about 5 years old, my parents divorced, and that was like the major change in my life. It was very difficult to get adjusted. Before I knew, when I was just about 12 years old, the revolution happened. And all of a sudden, there were all these angry people in the streets shouting, gunshots, you know, burning cars, burning buildings. And I couldn't understand what was happening. I had never heard a gunshot before. And then before I could even adjust to that, the war broke out in 1980, an 8-year war between Iran and Iraq. And then all of a sudden, after the first year, I could hear bombings and alarms for anti-aircraft missiles, and then blackouts and long lines for food ration and all these things. And it was becoming part of everyday life for everyone living in this condition, and for me as well. But I had a very special place I could go. At nights, when I could get a chance to be outside, I would go and look at the night skies. And that was my refuge. It was where I could go and let my imagination take me someplace else, to another world, to another planet, a place that was peaceful, a place that was playful, a place I could do anything I wanted to do. I would design spaceship that will take my family and friends and everyone who wanted to leave this crazy planet, and will take them to another place, and we would build a beautiful world. And I would win the Nobel Prize in Physics for building this amazing spaceship. And still to this day, space is where I go when I want to escape the craziness of the world around us. So imagination is a very powerful gift we have as human beings. It's a very unique gift we have, and we don't use it often enough. And it starts with the spark of an idea. It may be something we saw someplace, or maybe something we watched on TV. I grew up watching Star Trek in Iran. I loved science fiction books, and I would go to these imaginary worlds. And soon enough, you can see yourself in those, you know, characters where they live, and then you make it come true. When I was growing up, I thought by the time I'm an adult, I would go and apply to Starfleet Academy. I will become the science officer on board Spaceship Enterprise, and as Mrs. Spock, I would go all over the universe, just everywhere that I wanted to go and explore. Of course, when I came to US and I looked up Starfleet Academy, I couldn't find it. I was just, amazed. How could this be? But I'm one of those people who do not want to complain about things. If I find something that's broke, if I want to change something, I just do it. And that's what happened. Of course, I had to take a long route to get there. I became an engineer, then an entrepreneur, built a successful company. And when I sold my company, that's when I started focusing on how I can find my path to space. But along the way, I wanted to make sure I don't forget about it. So I had all these little reminders, like the dress-up scene that you saw before, that reminded me that I have this thing that I want to do. So the universe conspired and put me in touch with Peter Diamandis, who you heard this morning. And together, I helped the rest of the team to launch this amazing prize that actually transformed the face of space program and allowed for this whole new industry to be born, which eventually helped me on my path. The success of X Prize led to many other prizes, which you heard today, but also it was this first step, a launching pad for me to take me to my space trip to International Space Station. And in September 2006, I was able to go on a mission to International Space Station and spend 11 glorious days in space. And I experienced a freedom that I have never, ever experienced before. It was an amazing feeling. When I was orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes and looking out the window and seeing this beautiful Earth, there was this life and energy that I could sense from our planet. And I was looking down on Earth, and I could not see any borders. I could not tell the cities and countries apart from each other. Walls had no meanings. There was nothing dividing us. And when I was looking down on this beautiful image, I was hoping and wishing that everyone on the planet could see it. And they could see how we're all citizens of this one planet. We are all the astronauts in this beautiful spaceship we call Earth going through the universe, and how this would transform their lives. Of course, like every great adventure, it always has to come to an end. So when my trip ended and I came back to Earth, I was very depressed. All of my life, I had completely been consumed by this big, audacious dream I had to go to space. And now I had done it. So what? What would I do now? And then I realized while I was on space station, I started blogging. I actually became the first blogger from space. And we had we had millions of people that were reading the blog. It was about everyday life. But through the blog, I was taking them on this journey to space. And I had people from all over the world writing back to me. And somehow they were escaping their crazy life and whatever obstacles they were facing. And this had become like a little ray of hope to give them inspiration to go and pursue some of their audacious dream. So there began the third chapter of my life. And as I was looking through what was happening with this blog, I decided that perhaps my story can help other people reach out and go for their big dreams. One of the stories that I like to tell is the story of Sepideh, the young girl you see in this picture. She's a young woman in Iran and someone who wanted to become an astronaut and loved astronomy. She lived in a very small village, and when she heard about my story, she decided that that's what she wanted to do. And despite the fact that her family and the entire village was against her, she pursued her dream and continues to do so to this day. And there was a documentary that was made about her life. There are many, many other children and women around the world that all they need is just a little ray of hope, something that will inspire them and allow them to go after those big dreams. Just a little nudge will push them to think of a different life for themselves and a different life that they can build for their families. And I hope that my story will be able to do that for them, and I dedicate a lot of my time to that act right now. But that's something all of us, many of us sitting in this room, can do. So based on everything you've heard today, based on all the amazing technologies that you heard is available to all of us, we know that we can build a future that we want. So we want to build that future the way we can imagine, in a beautiful, wonderful way for all of humanity. So I'd like to close with one of my favorite poems by Karen Raven. Only as high as I reach can I grow. Only as far as I seek can I go. Only as deep as I look can I see. Only as much as I dream can I be. So dream, dream big, and go after your dreams. Thank you.